Trustees, as you are aware, the A to F accountability system was implemented in Texas with the promise of maintaining the same calculations and cut scores for up to 5 years to ensure better year-over-year performance comparisons. The Texas Education Agency, or TEA, has decided that now is the right time to set new goals for students this year to ensure that Texas is a national leader in preparing students for post-secondary success. With this in mind, we would like to provide you an overview of the 2023 accountability changes for districts and school campuses. We hope that as a result, you will have a better understanding of the impact of these changes to our 2022-23 school year results. The presentation will focus on 3 major topics. First, we will review the purpose of the Texas A to F accountability system. Secondly, we will go over the timeline for the release of results and ratings. And finally, we will introduce the state's new What If report. We want to begin by having you hear directly from the Texas Commissioner of Education regarding what to expect and how to respond to the 2023 state accountability results.
Hello, school board members. My name is Mike Morath. I'm Commissioner of Education for the state of Texas, and I am a former school board member. I served on the Dallas board for 4.5 years, and school board service is critical. When you think about the role that you play in our republic, you are where the buck stops, the governing body of the local school district, and you are responsible for how well those schools work and how well we serve collectively all 5.5 million souls in Texas public schools across the state of Texas. And thank you for your work. It is hard, daunting, and the pay is pretty terrible for a school board member. So thank you for your work. One of the things that I reflect on as a former school board member, one of the responsibilities that I held, was I needed to know how well our schools were doing in Dallas. Were they the same? Were they getting better? Were they getting worse? And because it was my job to oversee our administrative team and make sure that we were making progress for kids. And so what the agency does, what TEA does to try to help improve your ability to govern your school district is we provide A through F ratings, which then gives a summative evaluation of all of your schools. And so every year when A through F ratings come out, you can take a look at the ratings. You can then compare them to last year, and you can say, are my schools getting better? Are they about the same? Are they getting a little worse? And you can then help build action plans with your administrative team accordingly to support our kids. What has been true for A through F for the last 5 years, since 2017, is it's been basically the same system. The cut points have been basically the same. The mechanics have been basically the same. We evaluate schools holistically on the better of student proficiency or student growth. As you all well know, evaluating schools is complex. Our little humans are very complex creatures, and so trying to get a single picture of performance is difficult, but A through F does that very holistically. And the fact that it has remained unchanged since 2017 is also super helpful because you can then look at this year's results, your teachers can look at this year's results, your parents can look at this year's results and see, is the school getting better? What kind of progress are we making for kids? It was not always like that in Texas with the school rating system. Before the A through F system, the agency, the way TEA worked, would tweak the ratings every single year. That they basically raise cut scores ever so slightly any given year. And that was good in terms of setting goals that are constantly higher and helping us push forward for kids. But it made life really confusing as a school board member in Dallas in my old life because I would have a hard time figuring out, are last year's results the same or better than this year's results? But the downside of what we've done over the last 5 years is we do want to constantly get better for kids. We want to make sure that we are setting higher and higher goals. In fact, the statute that sets up A through F requires us to continuously increase cut scores to ensure that Texas is a national leader in preparing kids for post-secondary success. So this year we are refreshing the A through F rating system. We will be using the information that we've gleaned over the last 5 years, all the feedback that we get from educators, from parents and others, to update the way the ratings work. And what that also means is that the ratings that you look at this year cannot be easily compared with last year's ratings. There's a few places where cut scores are actually changing, in some cases going up, and so it will no longer lead to an apples-to-apples comparison. So to try to make life easier for you, what we are doing is we're publishing preliminary what-if ratings using last year's data, but using the new rating system calculations. And so that way, when ratings come out this fall, you will be able to compare this year's actual ratings with last year's sort of hypothetical what-if calculation ratings. And that way, you can have a good apples-to-apples comparison on performance. We're going to also put those hypothetical what-if ratings up on texasschools.gov so that when parents or teachers or anybody in the community looks to evaluate year-over-year performance, they can compare this year's performance with last year's performance using this year's metrics. And so we hope that this helps make the job that you have as a school board easier, but it's also going to be important for all of us to kind of communicate about this to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we'll be communicating more about this in the fall when ratings come out. We have provided your superintendent with hypothetical, what are preliminary what-if ratings so they can go over those with you, and there's a lot more details if you want to get into the mechanics of it. We have all that information on our website and provided that information to your superintendent. But I wanted to just talk to you directly about these changes because I knew that this would be important for me as a former school board member, and hope that this is valuable for you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for the service that you do for our kids. School boards are critical to the foundation of our democracy and to highly functioning school systems. God bless you for what you do.
As you heard from Commissioner Murrah, the purpose of the A2F accountability is threefold: to continuously improve student performance, eliminating achievement gaps based on race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, and to ensure Texas is a national leader in preparing students for post-secondary success. On this slide, you can see the timeline set by TEA. I want to draw your attention to some key dates. On June 30th, the end of course results will be published in Family and Analytic portals. August 11th, the STAR 3 to 8 performance levels will be available to all districts. August 16th, the STAR 3 to 8 assessment results will then be published in the Family and Analytic portals. On September 26th, the 2023 A2F ratings will be released to districts via the TEO platform. On September 28th, the 2023 final A2F ratings will be released publicly. Now I would like to introduce you to Teresa Urabaso, who will provide you an overview of all the changes.
This portion of the presentation is to introduce the state's new what-if report. As you've already heard, the accountability system has changed, and the STAR assessment itself, our state's test, has also changed. And due to these significant changes, it was very important that the state provided some guidance as to know what can we compare this year's results to. The what-if report is the state's attempt to look at the information from last year and to apply what would happen if the current accountability system was applied last year. What is important to keep in mind is that the 2022 accountability ratings and the 2023 accountability ratings are using very, very different methodologies. Because of the state's A through F refresh, 2022-23 ratings will be based on a totally different set of rules than what was previously used to identify a campus and the districts with a letter grade of A through F. 2022 ratings and 2023 ratings cannot be compared side by side. The ratings as they were that were released for 2022 cannot be compared to the 2023 ratings. It is simply not apples to apples. It is possible for a campus with an A rating in 2022 who improved in 2023 and yet receive a B rating due to the change in methodology. So let me say that one more time. campuses who received an A or a B rating in 2022 may be receiving a lower rating, a B or a C, because of the change in methodologies. Similarly, a campus that received a C rating in 2022 may actually earn a B rating in 2023 due to the changes in methodology. The bottom line is that it is simply not an apples-to-apples comparison when trying to look at letter grades for 2022 and comparing them to letter grades for 2023. For this reason, TEA is providing districts with a preliminary look of what-if ratings. The what-if ratings are preliminary versions of campus and district A through F ratings, looking at 2022 results under the refreshed 2023 framework. What if preliminary ratings do not replace 2022 ratings? They are another tool to support continuous improvement moving forward. The 2023 Accountability Manual is open for public comment until June 20th. What if ratings released on May 31st to districts remain preliminary until all feedback is received on the 2023 Accountability Manual. Again, the what if ratings that were provided to the district provide a district and campus ratings for 2022 using the 2023 methodology. Because they are preliminary, they are being shared with districts directly and are not yet being publicly published. Again, these what-if ratings are not yet publicly published, but they are a helpful tool as we look to see how we did for the 2023 school year so that we can have an accurate comparison. In the fall, TEA will publicly share what-if ratings alongside the 2023 ratings. In this way, the public and us will be able to talk to our community and make sure that when they look at our results and our letter grades, they're not comparing us to how we did last year, but instead to these what-if ratings. What if final versions of campus and district ratings, again using the new A through F methodology, will be shared alongside 2023 ratings in the fall of 2023. TexasSchools.gov will provide apples-to-apples comparisons of ratings under the refresh, cut points, and methodology. It is very critical that we share with the public that when making a comparison to how our campuses did, it's important that they compare us to the what-if ratings. Now, this next portion of the presentation looks at the 2023 Accountability Redesign and provides a quick overview. When you get the what-if report, it's important to understand what are the differences that this new what-if letter grade, what are the differences that make up this new letter grade? So in this portion of the presentation, we're going to go through a very quick review of the 2023 Accountability Redesign. First and foremost, the way the district receives a letter grade is fundamentally going to be different than the way that it was done last year. Last year, a district received a letter grade based on how all the students across the district performed. So in other words, how did all students perform in reading? How did all students perform in math? So the district had its own set of accountability rules that took into account the district as a whole, the total district's graduation rate, the total district's percentage of students that were college, career, or military ready. Now, instead, for this school year, districts will receive a letter grade based on a proportional weighting of each campus's performance. Campuses which have a large number of students will be weighted higher than campuses that have a small number of students. So in other words, if every single campus received a letter grade of an A, then the district's overall letter grade would be an A. If, however, campuses were rated all B's or half B's and half C's, the district would receive a letter grade proportional to the letter grade for each domain that was given for each campus. Again, campuses that have a larger number of students will get a higher weight than those that didn't have that many students. So you may have a campus with only 300 students that earned an A, but a campus that had 800 students that got a D. Well, that D would be weighted higher than the campus that got an A. And that is going to impact the district's overall rating. Again, the district's overall letter grades, it's going to be the letter grade that we receive as a district is going to be weighted proportionally to how all of our campuses did. Larger campuses will be weighted higher than smaller campuses. The district will receive a letter grade for each domain and then a letter grade overall. But the letter grade for each domain is going to be based and weighted based on how all of our campuses performed. So one of the biggest changes did occur in how the district receives a letter grade, but other changes happened at each individual domain level. So for example, first let's take a look at Domain 1, student achievement. Domain 1 star scale scores will not change. But what did change for each of our high schools is graduation raw scores increased by 2 points for the highest of the class of 2020, 21, and 2022. Just a reminder, for this year's accountability system, so for the 2023 accountability system, the class of 2022 is used. In fact, they take the highest of the class of 2020 for a 6-year graduation rate, the class of 21 using a 5-year graduation rate, and the class of 22 using a 4-year graduation rate. Whichever is highest, that is what they take in order to determine what graduation rate is used for each of our high schools. So prior year, a 96 was needed in order to get an A, and that again translates to a scale score of a 90. Currently for graduation rate, a 98 is going to be required in order to get that same scale score of 90, which was given out last year. Another big change is the change in college, career, and military readiness, raw scores. The raw score needed in order to achieve a scale score of 90 significantly increased for our class of 22 graduates. For this school year, a high school campus must have 88% of their students college, career, or military ready in order to achieve a letter grade of an A or a 90 scale score. Last year, that was 60%. So last year for the class of 2021, again, because they used the year before, they only need 60% of their graduates to be college, career, and military ready in order to achieve a scale score or a letter grade of an A and a scale score of a 90. This year, that jumped up to 88%. 88% of our high school graduates had to be college, career, and military ready if that campus, in order for that campus to achieve a scale score of a 90. So that is a big change. Now, enlistment in the Armed Forces, National Guard, based on the DD4 submission for the 2023 graduates is still expected. That is coming for 2023. But again, keep in mind, the 2022 graduates is what we're using for CCMR. Projections for high schools appear to be significantly impacted by this change in raw scores needed to attain a certain scale score or letter grade. Now, another significant difference between the accountability system from last year to this year is the way individual student progress is being calculated. Student progress last year looked at a student's scale score from last year and compared it against their scale score from this year. If the difference between those scores reached a certain amount, then that student was indicated as making annual expected progress. This year, the state has decided to use what they are labeling as growth tables. What this has done is taking a student that did not pass the assessment, and we're breaking those students up into two groups: low did not meet and high did not meet. In this way, students will be able to demonstrate progress by going from low did not meet to high did not meet and receive full credit for making annual expected progress. Students at the approaches level were also broken up into two groups: low approaches and high approaches. These students will be able to demonstrate annual expected progress from going from the low approaches category to the high approaches category. Again, one fundamental difference from last year is students who did not pass the assessment are placed into two groups: low did not meet and high did not meet. This was done so that a student who didn't pass last year and didn't pass this year could still demonstrate annual expected progress from moving from one level to another. So any student that actually performed at the meets and masters level, well, that remains the same. Students are given full credit for just maintaining meets and masters levels of performance. In addition to that, performance growth points were given for students. Additional performance growth points are given to students who did not pass last year but passed this year. In this way, a bonus, if you will, or an extra quarter point was added for accelerated learners students whose score did not meet or failed last year and approaches or higher this year. That's why you see the 1.25, because they're actually given a quarter point more anytime you took a student from a non-passer to a passer. By calculating growth in this way, this allows for growth comparisons from Spanish to English, from grades 7th and 8th, English 1, going on to English 2 the following year. So it does include more students than last year in the growth calculation. So in this way, it's a good thing because we are now able to demonstrate growth for more students, because all it is doing is merely going from one performance level to another and recognizing that and calculating points because of that. The raw score needed to attain a specific scale score has also been revised given this change in methodology. So again, one of the biggest differences in this year's accountability is student growth is calculated based on performance level movement. If a student moves from one performance level to the next, then a full point or credit for growth is obtained. Now, any student that remains at the same performance level, high did not meet and above, will merely get half a point because they stayed at the same level and didn't go backwards. The only ones that do not get any credit is the ones that were at low did not meet and stayed low did not meet. Any student that was at a meets or a master's and goes back in their performance level, maybe to approaches either high or low, will also not get any credit. So again, students receive credit for going from one performance level to the next. Significant change in accountability this year has to do with the closing the gaps domain, or domain 3. Previously, any student group that met minimum size was included in closing the gaps. Now the total student groups now is only 4 student groups total. We are measured on the performance of all students in our 2 lowest performing race or ethnicity groups. Now, for most of our campuses and for the districts overall, our lowest performing race or ethnicity groups is going to be Hispanic and African American. So all student groups is going to be one group measured, African American and Hispanic, and then a new group called the focus group. This focus group is a unique count of economically disadvantaged, special education, emergent bilingual, homeless, migrant, and foster students, counting students only once. The reason that the state came up with this new fourth group or super group is because they realized that students were counted multiple times in many groups. A student could be considered Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, they could be considered special ed, and they would count in each one of those groups. So in order to help with this issue of counting students multiple times in many groups, they decided to come up with this focus group or super group, in which case every student is counted only once that are part of each one of these groups. This one group is then going to be measured to see if they hit the state target. This one group, along with the two lowest performing race or ethnicity groups and the all student groups, have to hit a certain state target in order to get credit for closing the gap. So just a reminder, the purpose of Domain 3, Closing the Gap, is to see and to acknowledge the performance of some of our lower student groups and to make sure that we are addressing the needs of those students. Now, another big change in Domain 3 is the assignment of points between 0 to 4. In the past, last year, the Closing the Gaps domain for each portion, for every segment of the population that didn't hit its target, it was either a yes or a no. You either got credit for hitting the target or you got no credit. Now, what the state has acknowledged by giving the points 0 through 4, a range of points, is that they are distinguishing between those schools that are close to hitting the target but may not quite be there. And it also allows us to determine movement towards the target. So we are now giving credit to campuses for movement towards the target and not just simply did they meet the target, yes or no. This change from yes or no really had a positive impact on many of our elementary schools' scores for Domain 3, because many of our schools were close to meeting the target but didn't hit it outright. And for this reason, when you're looking at your what if ratings, you may see that some elementary schools' ratings, letter grades, actually increased because they are now given some points for Domain 3 that they weren't given any prior. So again, we are now given a range of points 0 to 4 in Domain 3, whereas last year it was either yes or no. You either got points or you did not. This benefits our elementary campus, benefits all of our schools, but mainly benefited our elementary schools, especially. 4 components, there are still 4 components in Domain 3, Closing the Gap. You will have academic achievement, growth, English language proficiency, and the school quality measure that for high schools is going to be CCMR. And for middle and elementary, it's their STAR performance or their Domain 1 performance broken down by group, by our 4 new groups now. Again, how do you earn points for each group, whether or not they met the target? You're given a range of points, 0 to 4. Like the previous domains, they had to change the raw score to scale score conversion in Domain 3 because they fundamentally changed how Domain 3 is being calculated. So now that you have a quick overview of some of the changes in accountability, in order to understand the what if reports that are being applied to the 2022 or last year's results, I think it's important to also see what impact this had across the state of Texas. So after they applied the what if ratings or the A through F refresh methodology to the results for 21-22, the state found that 66% of campuses, their ratings remained the same. They found that 28% of the ratings decreased. So for some of those schools, 28% of them, when this new methodology was applied, the actual official rating for 21-22 went down after this new refresh methodology was applied. And again, the what if is not their official rating. This just allows us to have a comparison that we can use when we get our 2023 ratings for this year. Again, 28% of those ratings from last year went down after you applied the A through F refresh methodology. Now, 6% of those ratings increased. And based on reviewing our data for SAISD, I can tell you the closing the gaps domain and giving of points 0 to 4 have a lot to do with the 6% of the ratings that increased. 575 campuses would have had a higher preliminary what if rating than their actual 2022 final rating. Now, TEA's communication about the 2023 ratings will include, as mentioned previously, the use of the what if ratings in order to communicate growth. So when you go onto texasschools.gov and you see ratings, you're going to see side by side not a comparison of how they actually did in 2022, but you will see their what if rating side by side next to their 2022-23 rating. So in this example that you see here, you see that the actual rating in 21-22 for this campus was a 95. Their what if rating was a 92. And their actual 2022-23 rating would be a 93. So in this example that is shown here, it is very important that when we're communicating our results, that we are comparing that 93, not to the 95 that was actually earned, but to the what if rating, which is a 92, so that it's a much fairer comparison. And TEA will note, as indicated here, that the 2022-23 ratings are different from previous ratings due to the updated standard. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that, and so that when you go on TEA's website, this is actually very, very helpful that TEA is assisting school districts and campuses in making sure that fair apples to apples comparisons are being made. So one more time, just to review the timeline. On May 31st, we did receive our what if ratings. May 31st, we also got the end of course performance levels so that we know exactly how many points were needed to pass our end of course exams. On June 9th, an A through F estimator is going to be released to the district. What this does is it helps us with our predictions as we are looking at preliminary data. We can plug in our scores into the A through F estimator in order to get an idea of the letter grades for our schools. June 20th would be the official 2022-23 accountability manual public comment period when it closes. So we have up until June 20th to provide any issues or disagreements that we might have with the state's accountability system. June 30th is when the EOC results will be published in the family and the analytic portals. Now, it won't be until August the 11th that we will get STAR 3 through 8 performance levels. This is very important. Our campuses right now at the elementary and middle schools are looking at their results in 3 categories: likely to pass, unlikely to pass, and the zone of uncertainty. And again, if the end of course exams has taught us anything, the state of Texas has to dip well into that zone of uncertainty in order to determine their passing. They did dip into the zone of uncertainty in order to develop their passing standards for the end of course exams. So if that is any indication, as you go out and talk to your schools, please give them some peace and have them be calm until the actual performance standards come out. The results that they're looking at may be as much as a 20-point increase when they get their final results. after the state looks at all the data across the state and determines passing standards for 3 through 8. So it's not final until it's final. So even though what they're looking at right now is those students that are likely to pass and the students that are in the zone of uncertainty, many of the students in the zone of uncertainty will be indicated as passers when the final cut scores are released. Now, on August 16th, assessment results will be published in the Family and Analytic portals. Again, we will have final A through F ratings sometime in early September. It will be released to districts via TEAL, which is just our secure website that TEA releases stuff. And it's at September 26th, and not until September 28th will A through F ratings be made public. As always, me and my team will give you the best indicators that we have the moment we have data that we can calculate this. So you will know well before September 26th how our campuses will perform and what letter grade they will receive. As always, please do not hesitate to call me if you have any questions or set up time to meet with me. If you'd like to go over this in a little bit more detail, what is super important is that when our results come out, we are all on the same page and we all understand what this means and how actually we performed. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, for that overview. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Teresa for additional information. I will end by reminding you that if all children had a safe harbor, none would be at risk. Given the changes in the accountability system, we remain focused on our mission of providing a high-quality education for all students so that they truly, indeed, have a safe harbor.